Welcome to Safety Cafe, Conversations on the Frontline, the podcast with real conversations with industry experts who live and breathe safety on the job. So whether you're on a construction site, in a warehouse, or out in the oil and gas field, this one's for you. So grab your hard hat and coffee. It's time to kick off another episode of Safety Cafe.
There's something about Houston, a city fueled by hard work, big dreams, and really, really good coffee. Tucked into the heart of Montrose, Siphon Coffee isn't just a coffee shop, it's an experience. From the moment you walk in, there's an energy. A little quirky, a lot inviting. The aroma of fresh coffee, the buzz of conversation, and a space that somehow makes you want to slow down even on your busiest day. And that's exactly where we kicked off Season 2 of Safety Cafe. In this episode, we sit down with our good friend Cesar Villagran, a construction professional who's redefining what it means to lead in our industry. A self-described conscious constructor, Cesar blends safety, mindfulness, and even yoga into his approach, proving that taking care of people goes far beyond the job site. It's a perspective you don't hear every day, but maybe one we all need. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's start the conversation. Well, Cesar, welcome to Safety Cafe. We're so happy to have you here today. When I first saw your stuff on LinkedIn, it really spoke to me because you're an outlier in the construction industry. So tell me a little bit about Conscious Constructor and how you came about that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Conscious Construction. So I was trained like a lot of superintendents. Like I had some like pretty hard-nosed, rigid superintendents. And so as I transitioned from superintendent to working for University of Houston, I brought some of those kind of tendencies and ways of operating with me, which didn't really translate to what I consider to be like a very collaborative environment. And it took me a while to realize this. Like it wasn't like a next day realization. I wish it was. And then I started to shift. Like, okay, what could I do differently? And I started to do that incrementally over the last, just say the last 6 years or so. Yeah. And I started to make shifts in like, how do I communicate better? How do I deliver messages better? How do I work on enforcement? Because enforcement sometimes can be, depending on how you deliver, it can be received in different ways. And so I spent the last few years like really trying to like hone that in, like how can I deliver something that's done incorrectly in a way that's empowering? And I feel like some people may have it innate in them, but I don't. Like it wasn't innate in me. It was a skill that I was gonna need to acquire through study, through watching other leaders model it. And so then I started to like put these things together. Like, okay, so I'm working, compliance doesn't have to be so rigid was one thing that I figured out. Yeah. And then communication, like that's I feel like that's a very important piece in like any industry, and especially in construction. Like not communication, like in like the communication I'm talking about is like, how do I say something so that when the person walks away, they feel like it was an enriching conversation, even if they was to point out something that was potentially incorrect. And then connection, like I've really tried to, I started to figure out like, okay, if I'm going to see people, like the human side of folks, I need to get to know them on a different level. I need to figure that out. And so I started to do, some things, unintentionally, intentionally, some things. Started going to different events. Started getting to know people differently, like asking for people's hobbies, some things people can do. And then along with that, I started to figure out like, okay, people also want to, like people were looking at me for like, how do we do this particular thing? And that's like, that doesn't feel good to me as a human to like, just say this is how we do it, this is how it needs to be done. It's like, how can I invite in innovation? Like, how can I create a space where people are like, hey, what if we did it this way? Yeah. And then so anyways, I started practicing these 4 things unofficially. Yeah. And then like a year ago or so, or maybe 18 months ago, I was like, okay, how do I put language? How do I how do I create, like, there's a methodology that I'm doing, because people were asking me, like, hey, that was a really good meeting, and like your communication was good and the delivery was good, and it was like a tough conversation, but you managed to have it in a way that was empowering. And so then I sat down and like over weeks, I created like what I call this conscious construction methodology, and it's conscious compliance, which I see compliance as not as a constraint, but as a pathway to connection. Like, how can I have a conversation about something that on paper looks very rigid, but I can use it as a way to connect with this individual? And so I approach a conversation about, hey, here's our standards. Let's talk about our standards. But first, before we do that, let's talk about how you're used to doing it. And so a different conversation starts to arise. So there's conscious compliance, and then there's conscious communication, which is it starts to bring in the piece of psychological safety in the workplace, which is like, do folks feel safe enough to convey something that they truly believe without the fear of like retaliation or no, I'm not in a position to say that. And so that's conscious communication. And so it takes being intentional, it takes modeling, it takes creating a space where people really feel they can do that. And then the third kind of pillar of conscious construction is the conscious connection. And when we say conscious, we just mean intentional, on purpose, like doing things on purpose, not, well, I'm a good guy, so people are gonna like me. That's just accidental connection. We're talking about conscious, like gather with an intention, like approach things with an intention, with a purpose, with something that's disputable. And so when I attend an OAC meeting or an installation meeting or anything like that, is how can I first connect with folks instead of like, okay, here's what we're here to do. Those are very like quantitative, transactional situations that are fine, and that's not the way that I want to operate. That's not a conscious constructive way, or I'm a conscious constructor, as my LinkedIn says. And then there's conscious creativity. So it's all C's naturally, because my name starts with the C. So it's like, that's intentional. So I took a conscious approach to creating this methodology and naming it and branding and all those things. But conscious creativity really means like innovation. Like, how can I offer a standard, sometimes that I created from a multitude of standards. I'll create one document that's kind of a checklist of all these things to help folks navigate it. And then how can I invite them to say, hey, take a look at this, and what could I add or remove that would make you successful? And then it invites them to be like, think about it and get innovative and creative, and like, what have you done in the past? Let's talk about it. Let's explore this. And so what it starts to create is a space where, like, I walk through trailers and projects where we're rarely talking about like what's going on in the field first. Like, that is secondary. Like, first we're talking about, like, I can tell you like what folks did on the weekend. They know what I did on the weekend. People know that I teach yoga. They know that I volunteer. They know that, my dad was in construction. He's passed. People know my background. And then I started to get to know their background, that they're engaged, or that they're going to their Aggie game, or that they're going fishing, or they like spending time with their wife and trying out different wines, or like, those are the pieces that I started to ask myself, like, how can I put this down in writing? And then that way one day I can share it with folks to create a tangible way so that they can start to create this in their own workspace. So that's kind of a long way to say what conscious construction is, but that's what it really is.
And have you seen like the change? Did you see like a market change when you started to put like an articulation to your methodology? Did you see a change in like quality and safety on your job site or job sites?
I saw where I see the change is in what I hear. First of all, like I hear different conversations happening. That's the first thing that I notice. How people introduce themselves. Like, I do this little workshop, like unofficial workshop. People come to my office and I say, hey, talk to me. Like, I just say, like, let's just say we're in a meeting and we're going around the table introducing yourselves. Like, just tell me what you would say when it got to you. And I say, oh, my name is Johnny Smith, and I work for Austin Commercial. I'm a project engineer. And then I start to explore, like, what if we, let's explore this. Here's what I like to do sometimes. And I'll share some things. And then I'll be in a meeting I was in a meeting just recently, and someone was saying, I shared with them that sometimes you can share, a little surprise, a story, and then introduce yourself. So like great speakers do this. First they'll say, what if I told you that 9 out of 10 people who do yoga, feel so much better after 6 months? Would you believe me? And then they'll say, hi, I'm Cesar. I'm a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor. So instead of like, hey, I'm Cesar. I'm a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor, and I'm here to tell you. So first you hit them with a little surprise that gets their attention.
Yeah.
And so I've seen this in some of the meetings where folks will share like a little snippet of something and introduce themselves. So this is conscious communication.
Yeah.
And so I see it there. And then I look at their agenda.
Yeah.
And their agenda is very intentional. Like they've shifted. Like it used to be just like, I'm going to talk about these things. Now I see some where at the top it has a purpose.
Right.
And they talk about a purpose first. And so they're getting creative with their own, so conscious creativity. And so I see that. And then in the safety meetings, there's a couple folks who lead the safety meeting on a project that I'm on, and I have some videos of them actually doing that. I share with my yoga friends in the community of the breath work that I guided them. Like, okay, when people reach up, ask them to take a big inhale, and then when they say forward during their stretch and flex, and then forward exhale, you can hear them in the video. So they've like adapted some breathing techniques. I don't have to call it yoga. I just say just say how people breathe as they move.
Yeah.
Connect the movement to the breath. And then that's like the beginning of learning how to regulate your nervous system, because all you need is your breath. And so you get a challenging situation at your desk or in the field, whether you're installing studs or wire or filling up gas cans. Like if you get dysregulated, you can always come back to your breath. And so I see these little like increments or these little pockets of space where I see like, I'm not their trainer. Like they don't work for me, so they don't have to listen to anything I say. But I can see where like I'm modeling it and they hear it again,
Right.
And they start to say like someone asked me the other day, like, hey, do you want to share about conscious construction? And I was like, thank you. And it was a superintendent who are usually the toughest cookies to break through on. And I was like, thanks. And I felt seen. Like feeling seen is so important.
Right.
And when someone who we perceive as not usually the champions of making people feel seen, not that they're mean, but they're usually like very like they're very driven and very focused on certain things.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, wow, thank you. And he did it in front of his staff. And I was like, this is what modeling these things and that's going to cause like a bigger shift than anything I could ever do. So when leaders model this kind of behavior, they start to feel like, okay, it's safe for me to like try something new or like do something like disrupt the status quo in some way. So that's where I see it showing up. I see it showing up in everywhere in little ways, and hopefully it'll start to like catch on, like snowball, and like other jobs will little by little. And then maybe one day it'll be like a big workshop and I'll be at the AGC speaking in front of many leaders, and they'll say, hey, we need to bring this to our folks. And
absolutely,
it's possible.
It's going to happen. Like, so because before this, you were a superintendent, right?
That's right.
And so were you a hard-nosed superintendent?
I was 1,000% a hard-nosed superintendent. Yeah, 100%.
So you've gone through this massive transition.
Yeah. It was for sure. And a lot of it was like, if I'm being honest, it was like a lot of unhealed trauma was the source of my rigidness. And it was like, I was like, I need to prove a point kind of thing. Like, I need to set some people straight who have wronged me from my early part of my career. So like a lot of ego, there was a lot of that. It wasn't because like I thought it was the best way to build.
Right.
It was because like I didn't have any other way to share a message. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I thought that like just being firm and having authority was all I needed. And I would see other superintendents who had like a different approach, and I didn't think they were weak, but I just thought like, well, they can't possibly be building a job as quick as I do.
Right.
And nothing was further from the truth. Yeah, that was that realization. And those mentors, like years later, I still remember them. My old superintendents that mentored me at Gil Bain that were fantastic at what they did. And Hank Stewart and Gerald Moore, who's passed away, Hector Valdez, and like those folks were like leaders, not managers, not superintendents. They were leaders. They shared the why of why something was important to do. And I was like, I think I was like, I may have been going through a divorce, and I was like, things weren't going well. And so I was maybe like, I was going through a lot of mental health stuff, just like an angry person. And it would show up in my day-to-day. And it took me a while to realize how the way that I showed up impacted other people's days. Like I was having this tremendous impact on other people's lives, like just by being difficult to be around. And then, as I got old, as I moved through like my last years in Gilbane, I was already like backing off of that and transitioning. And I was still finding my way. Like when I started with U of H, I wasn't like that. And I can look back at like, whoa, my communication style has changed so much. And there was a pivotal, when it comes to psychological safety, there was a moment, I'll never forget it. I won't say names, but I was in a meeting, and there was two people in there from the same team, and they missed a deadline. And the more superior person, or the more senior person of the two, reprimanded that person in front of everybody.
Wow.
And then I sat there thinking, like, I don't even remember what they said, but I remember thinking, am I that person? Like, I was thinking, like, am I that? Do I do that?
That was your aha moment.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And then that person who was reprimanded, I'm trying not to like use gender, so them and I are really good friends now. And when I go to Austin, we try to connect. And I always remind them of that. That was my aha moment.
Yeah.
And I think about that as like, oh, there's a better way. And I didn't know that it was like, I don't reprimand people, but I know that I said things that made the room tense.
Right.
And so I was like, oh no, something's got to change. This was like 7-8 years. I was just starting yoga now that I think about it.
But what led you to yoga? I'm kind of curious, because you're not in the typical demographic, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Typical demographic of yoga.
100%. So,
what got you to a yoga class?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm a teacher, is because of that exact thing. But yeah, what got me into yoga was a New Year's resolution first. I was in Southeast Asia, and I was in Cambodia, and my friend Hillary we did something for New Year. We went to Angkor Wat. It was like this big temple in Cambodia. And she said, I'm going to also go to yoga because I want to start the year off. I was like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah. And so I ended up going with her, and I met the owner, and she was actually a U.S.-born woman named Rebecca Bartlett, who now has a studio somewhere near D.C. And I took that class, and I went to Thailand, took another class. Then when I got back to the States, I signed up. As soon as I got back, I was like, I want to start this thing. And I signed up like mid-January, but I didn't actually take my first class till mid-February. Oh wow, it's actually the anniversary. February 15 was February 15, 2019 was when I started at this studio. It's now closed. But before they closed, I practiced like 1,200, almost 1,300 times in 5 years. Wow. So I was like really committed, dedicated to this place. Yeah. And that's really where it started. And it was like started with 1 class a week, 2 classes. And there was a time where I was like taking 5 classes a week, sometimes 2 classes a day. Like it was just like, I was starting to see, like at first it was like to touch my toes. Everybody's like, you can't touch my toes. But then there comes a time where something happens. You have a transformation. There's a point an aha moment, if you were like, something greater than physical has just occurred.
Right.
Like I just had something has just been uncovered. Yeah. And when that happened, I decided that I want to be a yoga instructor. Like I want to share this with people, because there wasn't any representation. Like there wasn't anybody that looked like me, that sounded like me, that was shaped like me. And so I was like, I need to get up there. I need to be the person up there in front so other people can say, we can be represented, number one, the Hispanic culture. And So people who occupy larger bodies, people who are differently able, people who need more options, they can just say, even if they want to say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. That's fine. And so then I took my first training. My dad passed in 2020. And immediately after that, I did a meditation training, which was like almost life-saving. And then from that, I started yoga teacher training. And then since I've done two 200-hour yoga teacher trainings and one 100-hour meditation training, along with my trauma-informed yoga training, which I think is the gift that I want to share with everyone, because it's the one that is the best, and that's the one that is informed how people experience me on work, and it's kind of like was the catalyst to conscious construction. Like when the intersection of mindfulness and construction was born from trauma-informed yoga, because trauma-informed yoga, the way that it applies to anything in life is really a nervous system aware approach to your interactions with humans. It's understanding that they could be going through something you're completely unaware of, and it's impacting how they show up in the workplace. Yeah. And I think when we can understand that, then we can support them in a different way when maybe they didn't hit a deadline. Well, maybe they need additional support. Maybe they need somebody else to carry some of this load during this challenging time. Because I have a friend right now who's a single. She lost her dad and has her mom, and she had a stroke, and she's a full-time caregiver, full-time worker. She's doing both.
Wow. That's so hard.
And I think if her leadership knows this, and they operate through the lens of psychological safety or nervous system awareness, they're going to want to support her. They're going to want to say, hey, work from home on these days, or they're going to figure out a way to support them. And that's why I think that everyone should take some form of workshop, class, training in nervous system awareness, psychological safety.
Right.
Just to become aware, because once you get aware, once you're like, oh, I didn't even know that, that's all that you really need. Once people understand that, like 1 in 4 women before the age of 18 experience sexual assault, 1 in 6 boys before the age of 18 experience the same thing, 50% of couples experience intimate partner violence. If you have a room of 10 people, somebody's the numbers somebody, and so the way that you approach it, you don't try to figure out who that person is. You just treat the room the same, with care, with options. Hey, we're about to start this meeting, but know that you can get up at any time to go to the restroom. The water's out here. We got a coffee station. You're giving people choices. You're giving people permission. Because people will feel like, I can't leave, it's the meeting, and people don't leave during meetings. Right. So a leader can set the tone and say, hey, we're starting the meeting. I'm sitting over here, but you can sit wherever you want.
I like that. That's really great. I like that.
Because people say, I usually sit here and this and that. Hey, you can sit anywhere. That way people sit wherever they feel the most comfortable. Right. If you say, I'm going to sit here, then in their mind, like, I don't want to sit next to the person that's talking the most for whatever reason. They'll sit in, then they have a choice. They're actively choosing where they go. And then you say, the restrooms are here, the coffee is here. And if anything feels uncomfortable, you're always welcome to leave. Yeah. We're transcribing it. We're going to send minutes. It's full choice. You're created this phase where people really feel that. And then you create the structure of the meeting. Then you say, hey, I'm going to be sharing some things. I ask that if you have thoughts, write them down. I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to share. It starts to set the tones to be more like, hey, what about this? And it starts to turn into that meeting. Right. Yeah. And then you just remind people like, hey, I'm going to come back to you. That's very important. I want to honor that. Yeah. And I got you right down here. I wrote you down first. You're first. I'm going to call on, but I want to get through this so I can honor the agenda. People's time.
I feel like you could create a class just on this, on how to run a meeting. It's funny because I'm like learning it as you speak. And NW Safety, yes, we've been around for 10 years. However, it was only 3 years ago that we decided to scale. And I didn't know how to be a manager of people. Honestly, it's just because, you understand business or whatever. there is so much of a learning process in leadership, and you don't realize like those nuances of just how you set a tone in a meeting is how people perceive and how they feel. It's a collaborative. I mean, I've learned so much because I remember in the beginning, it was just, I felt like it should be done my way because this is the right way, right? And then learning how to like listen to people and say, hey, well, how have you done this in the past? And as you speak about that, and like it's been a journey. I would say the last 3 years have been a real journey on leadership. And this is, you know, when I saw your stuff on LinkedIn, and even though we met 15 years ago, and then I saw your stuff on LinkedIn, and I was like, I know him, and I'm going to reach out to him because I wanted to feature your message because it spoke to me like so strongly, because that has been in my journey in the last 3 years of just understanding leadership and how to speak to people and the psychology, and construction being like such a hard-nosed industry, and you would say like this is like the last place that this could apply to, but I feel like it can apply to construction if you worked anywhere, right? So this concept that you're the conscious constructor, it applies anywhere, but that's why your message speaks so strongly to me. When I saw it on LinkedIn, I was like, I've got to talk to Cesar, even though we met 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, let's reconnect.
Yeah, for sure.
So my biggest thing is like, you know, when we see the laborers, and you know, we're in a certain climate right now, and I won't get into politics, right? But it's like, can we focus on people for who they are and what they bring and the value that they bring, and you know, not just walk through a job site. You know, a lot of times, you know, people see me and I look a certain way, right? And they would think that I would dismiss people. Not at all. That I value every single person and what they bring. And you know, as far as like our team, I know I have a great team, right? And that will bring tears to my eyes because they're amazing. But it's like, how do we further develop that skill set of connecting with people and making people feel valued and how they work differently, not just in safety, right? They do their job safely and they listen to the compliance side of things, but like how that brings quality, right? And so the end result is that we all work better together. We're working on time, and you know, so I know there's going to come a time when you're going to speak to our team and coach them on this very concept, because I want them to further develop this connection, the human connection.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's the way that a leader can model, like wanting to support their team. It's like, hey, I'm going to bring in someone, or I'm going to share something that I think can like add some value, not just to the team, but maybe to you in your everyday life, and supporting and celebrating. So like, what I take that from the yoga mat to my yoga mat teaching to like the project, because one of the principles of trauma-informed yoga is to whatever choice somebody makes in a pose. Like some people want to like listen, like, okay, now put the blanket under your knees and put your arm here and or you know, relax, what position, whatever the pose is. And some people are like, I don't feel like moving, bro. I'm gonna stay like right here. And then my job is to support and celebrate the choices that people make in their practice. Not to be like, hey, okay, now's the time to get in this pose. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. And some classes may do that, but that's not what trauma-informed yoga is. Trauma-informed yoga is very choice-based. So when you can take that choice space and put it into the workspace, like give people choice, support and celebrate them. Hey, I know that you chose to do it this way. I support and celebrate that. I honor that. Like we're gonna figure it out. Like even if it was like perceived right or wrong or whatever it was, but I support you taking the initiative to like try something new. Like you don't always have to do exactly the way that I've always done it. There's different ways of doing things, and so I think like I try to pay attention to that, to see if it's present, like as I'm listening for meetings. And I don't think that meetings are aggressive, but I just think that there's sometimes when spoken to kind of feel vibe in there sometimes, like only when they're asked a question they speak up. And I wish more people would feel comfortable saying, I have a question, I have a comment, I want to say something, I disagree with that comment or statement. Like I think I would probably like just fall out of my chair with happiness if someone disagreed with something, in a productive way, because I think that we don't have to do things the way we've always done them. And so hopefully we'll get like little by little, incrementally, we'll get to a space where people feel that way. And I think starting with setting an intention, like, hey, there's no wrong answers, there's no wrong questions. And when somebody shares, one great thing that people can offer is when somebody offers something, we don't want to piggyback off of what they said. Like somebody like, let me piggyback off of what they said. And we also don't want to say, we don't want to like one up them. Oh, that's nothing. Here's what we did at the other job. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We want to, if we're going to say anything, we'll say thanks for sharing, and then let it land and let it be, and then share your own thoughts.
Right.
And not offer like, sometimes our friends will be like, oh, I got a podcast perfect for that. Like here's a book you should read, instead of like I just want my story or my voice to be heard. I don't need advice or another book that I'm not going to read. I have those.
Let me share this.
I need another screenshot of another thing that I'm not going to buy. Sometimes folks just want to be heard. Like, absolutely. And generous listening is so important. It's just to suspend analysis, suspend the desire to control the outcome. It's just listen, like, wow, thanks for sharing your perspective. I appreciate that. And that's all you have to say. But it makes people uncomfortable to not like want to say more things like, oh yeah, I remember a time when it's like shift the energy. Yeah. Honor the folks. Like honor what they just said. Like, wow, I never saw it that way. Or, well, that's very interesting. Or, I can't wait for you to share something else. Because
we can always think about times when we're going through stuff, right?
That's right.
And sometimes we just want to be heard, right? And so when somebody gives you that opportunity, I mean, I think that's, in re-meeting you, right? I was like, well, you listen. You just like, and you take sufficient like pauses. I'm analyzing everything you're doing in the best of ways because I'm trying to learn from you, right? And I was like, you give people this sense of like you have a calming effect. And I think it's just because you listen and you pause and you're engaged, you're very present. And so like, I think that if leaders could take that sense of just calmness, being present, like how much different would our workplaces be, and our job sites, of course, but it goes across all industries really. So it just doesn't stop at construction.
Yeah. It's a practice because the pause is can be uncomfortable. Yeah. Like to start a meeting, like I would invite people, like they're going to start a meeting and you're going to be the one to start the meeting. They're like, okay. And like, it's like, at 1 o'clock, the meeting starts at 1.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking at you. I would invite everybody to just take a deep breath and then smile and watch, just count the smiles that'll follow your smile. And then thank you for coming today. Today, we're going to talk about the outage that's coming up in 3 weeks, yada, yada, whatever the thing is. Yeah. And the intention of this meeting is not to answer the questions, but just to start the planning process. Yeah. We don't need to know things aren't right or wrong. You set yours, make it clear. That way people know where we're going. I made a poll about like what makes you feel the most comfortable in meetings. Yeah. And one of the answers was like knowing the agenda and knowing what we're going to talk about and knowing our roles. Like we have so-and-so and they'll be sharing about X, and so-and-so they'll be sharing about Y. We want everybody to contribute. And at the end, I'm going to open up the floor and I'm going to go around one by one and I'll ask you to share anything you have. And then just because I passed you up doesn't mean I won't come back to you. If something comes to you after somebody else says something else, just raise your hand or let me know, and then we'll give everyone a chance to speak. I think incorporating those pauses, and I'm learning a lot about that as I'm training myself to be a keynote speaker. And we're having the National Association of Women in Construction Week site walk on Tuesday, the 3rd.
Which I signed up for.
You signed up for it, and they asked me to speak, so I'm going to speak for 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
I'm going to share this amazing story that's going to...
I love it.
I've been watching, I don't know if you've been watching the Olympics, and they asked this woman, this is not the story I'm going to share, but this is the Olympics, this is from the Olympics. They asked this woman, I don't want to mess up her name, but she's representing China, she was US born, and she's like a freestyle skier or something. And she had just won 2 silvers, and this man had the audacity to ask her, do you see those silvers as 2 wins or 2 losses of gold?
Oh, I think I saw this, but I didn't get to watch the whole thing.
Oh, and she like
What was her response?
She puts them in place, not in a gentle way of like, I am enough. Like, it's enough for me.
Yes.
It's like, and she says like, that's a very like weird perspective to take.
Yeah.
And it is. It's like very like, what are you talking about? Like, instead of celebrating the accomplishment, he's like minimizing it.
Yeah.
And of course, someone like that will say, oh, that's not what I intended to say. It's obvious to the world that you're so uncomfortable with somebody else being successful. And she says, she says, to win 5 medals in what I've done is like unheard of. And each one is equal to other people watching me. Like a silver is a silver is a silver. But each one is exponentially harder for me, because to win another one is very hard, to be known as a multi-medal winning Olympian. But just to be an Olympian is enough. Like, why isn't that enough? And this guy's talking about that. And I was like, there's so much to learn from a skier, a person, a woman. And one of my presentations I'm doing soon, there's a soundbite that says, and a quote from, I forget her name, she does a TED Talk on this, and she says, it's impossible to learn from someone that you inadvertently see as competition. Hard to do it. Like inadvertently or on purpose. This guy was doing it on purpose. But how can you, like, there's something to learn from this skier, this Olympian, this human, this woman, and instead you're choosing to minimize what she has done. Yeah. And I thought her response was amazing. And those stories of, like, there's been so many amazing stories I've been watching. If you watch the individual sports, everybody that wins gets celebrated by the entire competition. All the participants, skiers, snowboarders, they all rush to celebrate the person that won, even if they're not from their country. That's been like one of the greatest things that I've seen. And I've been making like so many notes, and some of them have been like intentions for my yoga class.
Yep.
Because feeling supported is like one of the pillars of like overcoming tough times. Like if you're supported, like you can almost accomplish almost anything if you feel like you're supported, whether you're navigating grief, whether you're trying to like start a new business. If you feel like even when I see a friend show up to my class, I don't expect them to show up, but every now and then they'll show up, and I'm like, that makes me feel like so good to see, like, to feel supported from my friends. I don't feel not supported when they don't show up, but when they show up, I feel exponentially supported. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great to witness those examples of like what it's like to like to see, like, to the world to see that type of like, I don't know, minimizing of women still exists out there. Like, wow, there's so much to learn. Like, and we wouldn't be here without them. And it's just like, yeah, it just blows my mind to see it. And yeah, to help to contribute to giving them a voice and giving them a seat at the table, like that's what I want to be committed to.
It's interesting in the sense of like, in my role, I always say, like, I don't really try to capitalize on the fact of being a woman, right? I say I want people to work with us, not because it's a minority-owned business, minority-owned woman business. It's because we're the best at what we do, and simply that, right? And so that there's like, and so I never try to use that as a crutch, right? I'm just like, I set out every day to be the best, and my only competition is who I was yesterday. I don't look to the left or to the right, because I just say, who was I yesterday, and can I be better than yesterday? But it's like, with women, I always say, like, let's not look at the fact that we're women and use that as a crutch, right? But how, we already have a seat at the table. Don't say that you're trying to get a seat at the table. We actually already do, right? And, and giving that voice of like, hey, just that confidence. And, that response from that Olympian, wow, like that was just like bravo to her. She knew her response. She knew she already had the seat at the table, right? Yeah. And so for like other women in the industry, they feel like they're not being seen or not being heard. It's like, well, let's band together, and how do we celebrate their wins, and how do we celebrate who they are in greatness, right? So,
that's right.
Because it's a band of brothers and sisters, and it's not just we're not by ourselves, right? And how do we celebrate each other?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it said in the Buddhist philosophy, in yoga philosophy, there's a word called mudita, M-U-D-I-T-A, and it translates loosely to sympathetic joy. And what it says is the wish for you to experience supreme joy. So they're sending this wish out to everyone but themselves. So they want it for themselves, but they're sending it out to people, even the people they don't know. And it's like the wish for them to experience supreme joy, the greatest joy of all, but not only that it persists, that it lasts forever, but that it multiplies exponentially.
I love that.
This is sympathetic joy. So this is like, it's free of of jealousy, greed, of all those things. And that's what I was thinking the whole time when I saw people celebrating people, whether they won second place or third place or last place or whatever it was. I was like, this is the embodiment of true sympathetic joy, that they're just like happy to be in each other's presence.
Right.
Like they're all gold medal winners. They're all Olympians. They're all like... It's just incredible. And
just to get there to compete says something, right? So it's like you have to be of a certain level of excellence to get there and compete. So even if you lost, if you were last place, you had to get there. And so that means you're an excellent athlete, right?
Yeah, and I think you would trace it back to the people who didn't make it. I mean, there are more athletes than me. So to get to the point where they didn't make it to be Olympians, they didn't qualify, still phenomenal. Yeah. And the people before that, and like wherever, like, just to have a dream to be an Olympian or land on the moon, or like, I think that's phenomenal. Like, just to be part of the fabric of this existence. Like, if we can truly see that, like, we're like this world that we experience wouldn't exist without us. It would be different without us in it.
Right.
And it's like see the greatness in ourselves. Know that we are enough. That our self-worth is sourced from us and it's not from what other people think we should be. And even though it's challenging when some people make us feel like we're not enough, like just to like come back to remembering that like we are, we're the subject matter experts of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Right.
And we could just say, hey, get lost. I won 5 medals. How many do you have?
Exactly.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Safety Cafe Conversations on the Frontline. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time.